Well, I wanted to do a video um, because I haven't done one in some time in English. I've been doing them in Spanish. Uh, this is Wednesday of the octave of Easter, and I have experienced a rebirth that I wanted to share some more about. Have another video, God rescued me from the brink, but I wanted to try to meditate a little bit uh, on video about what I have perceived to be God's ways in guiding us, etc. And I am reminded of a video I made, uh, something about reality being like a slideshow that God controls, sort of inspired in the ideas of a philosopher that I studied in college, Bishop Berkeley, Anglican Bishop Berkeley, way back, I think 18th century or so, which, as I interpret him, uh, Irish, Anglo-Irish philosopher, as I interpret him, as I remember, he's known for subjective idealism. He's known for a theory that denies material substance, and that what we see are ideas perceived by the mind. And I don't want to, I'm not a philosopher. I have a degree in philosophy, but I'm not a philosopher really. But what have intuited at times is that, uh, and I've written about this in Reflections on God's Providence a little bit, is that we get the feeling that there can be a change in our perception of reality or of our world, which is not just a change in perception, but an actual change in reality. Bishop Berkeley may not agree, but I'll give you one example. I prayed a lot that my back would be healed. I have MRIs, etc. I have various real problems with my back, including the spine being out, two vertebrae being out of place. I mean, hard stuff. It's not just a muscle or whatever. And that I was a candidate for surgery, and I had trouble walking very far at all. Was very afraid that I couldn't clean my condo, and in fact did not clean it for months, not just because of the back, but I was depressed. And as I have said, but I'll repeat because this may be the first time somebody watches, I spent a lot of 2023 in depression, and then in August decided or agreed to have a total knee replacement in November. Was deathly afraid of this total knee replacement. The effects of the operation, which was a great success as far as the knee is concerned, the effects of the operation, whether it's anesthesia, whether it's being, incapacitated, and just the dust that I felt had accumulated in my apartment, etc., made me even more depressed, dangerously depressed. My stomach and my esophagus were out of whack. That further depressed me. And to make a long story short that need not be long, um, in the midst of this thing in January or so, I realized I've lost 30 pounds. which is a lot of weight to lose without even intending to or being even aware of it that much. And then sometime later, I began. Of course, I was doing physical therapy for my knee, but I also began to do some very easy and simple exercises for my back from the same center of physical therapy that I had visited once for my back just before the knee operation. So I told them I'm not going to be able to continue with the back now, but they gave me a sheet. And lo and behold, I don't have any trouble walking or cleaning the apartment, even doing twice as much. The whole esophagus thing went away. I am back to my old diet, the one I had before, which I like very much. I have Caesar salad every day with anchovies. I think that's kind of like a feast. And it just seems that everything I prayed for came true in the most mysterious way. Now, I have already said, and I'll repeat it because, again, um, I had uh, subscribed to or enrolled in the Prayer and Life workshop based on a Capuchin called Ignacio Larrañaga, who I now take to be a great spiritual master. He died some time ago. And I want his picture nice and big here. When the first session took place, they promised. I said, what you're promising is basically a total conversion, a total new life. The secret of happiness. And I said, good luck with that. Well, by the sixth session or sixth week or maybe seventh, because the first one's supposed to not count, etc. I was experiencing God in a very different way and was getting really ready to celebrate Holy Week and especially the Triduum, Holy Thursday, Good Friday, and Holy Saturday with the Easter Vigil Mass in a way that I had never done before. Now, certainly belonging to a very good and united and long-standing church group in my parish, all, Mexicans and Central Americans. I was a Dominican in Mexico in the 1970s, so I'm very familiar with all that culture and identify with a lot of it, etc. That helps a lot when you go to church. We did the Via Crucis. It's really a passion play, very realistic, with a full size, maybe even larger than full size cross inside the church, with the son of a friend of mine, the leader of the group, actually getting crucified, with a whole bunch of dressed up Roman soldiers. They got all the outfits to look like Roman soldiers and Jewish priests, etc. And this year they told our group to sort of be in charge of this. There were some people missing from prior years. This has been going on for years, and I wound up being the principal narrator. And it was, people liked it. I love reading biblical or biblically inspired things. This is all in Spanish. And just to say two things that the two priests said to me. One of them said to me, "You speak very, very clearly." And the other one said, "You've had training as an actor." And I said, a little bit. In Italian, I told them, because that's just how I said it, un po'. But the point being that these were all experiences that are life-giving. I was worried about my website, which was about to have to be renewed with the fees, etc., with GoDaddy. But worse than that, GoDaddy would stop servicing Windows-based websites. And so I said, I have a website which is all my documents that I wrote when I was a professor at the seminary, and I have some spiritual writings. It's mostly biblical. I have stuff in Spanish, mostly in English. Bible Explainer, Bible-explainer.com, if you want to look it up, maybe with my last name, Chavez. And lo and behold, to make a long story short, a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, who's very savvy with computers and all that internet, said to me, for $1,500, somebody can build you a new website, etc. And I said, that's too much money. I don't even know who goes to my website. Lo and behold, a friend of his contacts me and says, I can build you a WordPress website. Your website is very simple. I could even have more bells and whistles. I said, right now, bells and whistles scare me more than attract me. He says, for $400, I can rebuild your website as a WordPress website and go to Bluehost, where the fees are much more reasonable for something like yours. And in fact, they're a fraction of what they were with GoDaddy. So I'm on the brink of having a new website, same name, same contents, until I change something or somebody else does. Maybe there will be a different design, much prettier, much more attractive, etc. But that is a sign from God. And from these friends that say, you have some good stuff there, and we sort of want to help you. They didn't say it like that, but that's what in effect they have done. So you start getting bombarded, if you will, showered with divine blessings that are incredibly healing. I have some trouble sleeping. I'm excited. I clean my place now without any fear. One of the great things about these prayer and life workshops of Father Larrañaga, who died 10 years ago or so, is that they attack fear and anxiety, which is my biggest problems. I said it the other day. My anxiety comes from both parents, and so if you can accept the will of God joyfully and enter into His mystery, which are all things that Father Larrañagas exercises, and they require minimum half an hour every day of going over what the session that week covered. It's a 15-week course, if you will, 2 hours a day minimum. I go to my parish for that. And the last session will be most of a day, a whole day. And the guide has already said to me, and you will be doing that sacred half an hour every day, which is my priority. I get up, I do the basic necessities and check some things online, do some reading and prayer, and then I do that sacred half an hour, and I anticipate doing it, and I love doing it, and it's always starts with a biblical passage. And this man honed over over decades, a way of, it's really called the new evangelization. That's what the prayer and life workshops call themselves. I don't see it here, but that's what they do call themselves. And it's a way of initiating yourself into the Christian faith. And in my case, I've been at it so long. I was a Dominican over 50 years ago, Dominican novice and simple vows student. Later, a Discalced Carmelite, simple vows, temporary vows also. To be reinitiated, or to go through another boot camp, or maybe it's a retreat type of thing. Whatever it is, God has ordained things to give you life. I have come to give you life and in fullness. so that it's incredibly energizing. My friends are shocked. And this workshop had already said in the first couple of sessions, people, you will change and people will notice, and it'll be remarkable. And when you first hear it, you say, that sounds like a great, pitch or whatever you want to call it, but it starts becoming true. And as you may know, if you watched any of these videos, I went through a period of really questioning God. And at night, when I would try to draw near to God and pray, my thoughts were basically, how can there be a God who allows such an unjust world and so many, so much suffering and all these kinds of things, Gaza and all the other things, Ukraine and all that. So I wasn't almost able to pray, which almost reminds me of, what I wrote. My most watched video is on Carson McCullers. I don't know how long they watch it, but over 200 people, which for me is viral. Over 200 people have watched, the Carson McCullers video. And in fact, Carson McCullers longed to pray and could not pray, and felt a sense of abandonment, a loss of God and godliness, which haunted her and which she thought was a factor in her not being able to write. So that she admitted that she had always felt a need to be close to God. If only God would help, and she didn't feel he did, and that he was a capricious deity whose specialty was freaks. And talking about this book called The Bride, which I believe becomes member of the wedding, but don't take that to the bank yet. Talks about a boy who God had not finished, and a deterministic God who had peopled the world with fragmented beings, unhappy grotesques, who realized that their destiny was to achieve no lasting joys or satisfaction. They formed a community of pariahs in exile, etc. Each lonely character in Frankie Adams' world, and this is member of the wedding book, which I started reading, was locked inexorably in a realm which barred fruitful communion. So that's what I was feeling for a long, long time. And here you have a picture from my room in Rome in 2011 that I spent 4 months in. This is taken an early Sunday morning, 2011, February 6th. And the reason I chose it for the Easter time is that it's the rising sun, very subtly, but you do see that it's darker up front and the light is coming from behind, even though I think it's facing west. My window faced west anyway. So these things come about subtly, but unmistakably, and it's almost as if God had changed those slide shows and presented a whole new reality for you. And so it's a remarkable way of acting that God has. And of course, it's always nature and grace and the physical world and the spiritual world. My cleaning this place makes me feel really good. Even doing the laundry for the first time in a long time, was very good. And then you clean your car, and you go to confession, clean your soul, and again you go back to your past, life before this trauma of the operation. Only it's a lot better. And just the fact that I've lost 30 pounds, which of course helped the back and everything else. The knee operation helped the back. So rarely will God, stand up on a pin or whatever it is, and do a show, but you don't have to be super perceptive to realize that he has been working in very marvelous and mysterious ways. And so there is hope. And the good thing would be, and the essential thing is, to have these tools for coping with reality, your world, the people that come cross your path in this world. And believe it or not, we had, I think, the 10th session yesterday. Again, I think they count sessions after the first one. So that's a lot of sessions. And it just so happens that you might even call it corny, and it isn't. The topic of this 10th session, 2 words through the program, is what would Jesus do? Look with the eyes of Jesus. Ask Jesus to come into you. Gaze at others. May your gaze be that of Jesus, merciful. I went to the store yesterday, and sometimes they have people there that you don't consider too competent, etc. They have some issues, problems, and you can be impatient. I sometimes get impatient in stores, etc. And I don't do that. Be a transparent reflection of Jesus. When you're driving, you feel like honking at, even at people that are doing the wrong thing, texting, looking at their phones while they're driving, holding up traffic, holding up a line behind a stoplight, where you're gonna, here where I live, you could spend almost 5 minutes at a light if you miss crossing it when it's available because somebody is delaying. Well, Jesus in his passion. But of course, there's been a whole preparation for this over weeks. I spoke about um, the what I wrote, I think, for the 8th or 9th week, where Father Larrañaga takes the famous prayer to the Trinity of now Saint Elizabeth of the Trinity, where she says, "Help me to disentangle myself from myself," so to speak, and install myself in you, immobile and pacified, as if my soul already resided in eternity, which is Elizabeth of the Trinity 100%. To live on earth as if you were already in the heavens, risen with Christ, which are some of the readings in this Easter period from Colossians and Ephesians. You have died and have risen with Christ already. In these maybe Deutero-Pauline epistles, you are already seated with Christ. And Elizabeth of the Trinity practiced that completely. She was told her name meant house of God, which is not what it means, really. And she took it literally to her benefit and the benefit of all those of us who know her. That nothing can disturb my peace, nor untie me from you, O my immutable, and that at each moment, each minute, I abyss myself, that's a verb, more deeply in you, in your mystery. Pacify my soul. Make of it your dwelling and the permanent, your beloved dwelling, she says in French. La Rañaga likes to put a permanent place of your rest. So make yourself, your soul, a place where God is happy to rest. Don't, grieve the Holy Spirit. On the other hand, make God see your soul as the place of his rest. Makom menuchot, of his resting places, if you want, in Isaiah 66. Menucha, this rest that is found in the Pentateuch and in the letter to the Hebrews. Rest, which is the opposite of anxiety. It's the arrival point for the exile. But in our exile, we can enter into this rest. That I never abandon you, but that totally immersed in you, that I be there completely. And she says in French, tout est belé en ma foi, pronounce French very badly. And this verb eveler, it's like what happens when you are vigilant, when you are keeping vigil. So you are at rest, alert. And she goes on to say, I want to spend my life listening to you and learning from you, being totally teachable. Which now reminds me that Winston Churchill said, and I've quoted him a few times, that he thought the primary characteristic of humankind was that we are unteachable. And we're seeing a lot of that. We've been seeing a lot of that for a while now. But it just so happened that this was combined with one of the readings, Luke 10:38-42, which is the story of Martha and Mary. And Martha is worried, anxious about a lot of things, same word as in Matthew. Do not worry about what you eat or drink or whatever. Your Father knows you have need of all that. One thing only is necessary. Seek the kingdom, and everything else shall be added unto you besides. And that's exactly what Jesus is saying in Luke 10. So that, and Elizabeth goes on to say, so that throughout all the nights, and she goes on to, with other words equivalent to night and trial and suffering and all that, I can fix myself on you always, almost the same as the Hebrew letter to the Hebrews, eyes fixed on Jesus, if that's a good translation. The pioneer or initiator and consumer perfecter of our faith. And to dwell under your great light, sous votre grande lumière. Fascinate me, like cast a spell on me, so that I can now no longer go out from your radiation or radiance. I mean, I read this before, years ago. I'm reading it with new eyes. I'm changing my own slideshow, so to speak. And it is all the work of the Lord. I think I didn't press my stopwatch correctly, but I am going to finish simply by going over what Colossians and Ephesians says that's relevant to this. Colossians 3, verse 1, so then, If you have risen with Christ, seek the things that are above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. Aspire to the things that are above and not those of the earth, because you have died and your life is secreted or hidden, kekruptai in Greek, with Christ in God. And the other one is in Ephesians, where it says that God, rich in mercy. By the way, Ephesians was Elizabeth of the Trinity's favorite, maybe New Testament text. She was her man was St. Paul, and Ephesians was her favorite, and that's where she got her nickname Laudem Gloriae, unto the praise of his glory, which appears several times in Ephesians. She didn't care about the Latin grammar of it. She just took it as she found it, Laudem Gloriae. But it says, God rich in mercy, for because of the great love with which he has loved us, when we were dead because of our sins, he vivified us, gave us new life together with Christ. It is through grace that you have been saved. So this is being saved in a present or even past tense rather than in the future, as in some other Pauline writings. And with him, he has made us rise and sit in the heavens in Christ Jesus. So this is the kind of stuff that Elizabeth of the Trinity loved, to live that spirituality. You are with Christ, hidden with Christ. The hidden life, very dear to the French mystics. And of course, Catherine of Siena has the famous line, which I have displayed in my little office here, and that I will try to bring up as quickly as I can. Catherine of Siena, which says, to finish, your place where you should be is Christ crucified, my only begotten Son, dwelling and hiding in the cavern of his side. This is akin to being under the wings of the Most High, Elyon, in Psalm 91. And with these words, I will finish my brief presentation.